Great, thank you so much for that warm introduction. So I'm Myra Awodey from the Duolingo community team. I'm just really excited to be here, even though disembodied is a little bit weird. I wish I were there in person. But I've been with Duolingo for 7 years now, so since kind of before we launched officially, and I was originally brought in as a German expert. So I was translating Duolingo's interface. I was actually a UI translator. I was designing the German course for English speakers. And I was kind of part of this initial test. And the main mission, Charlotta, if you want to kind of go to next. Yeah, so I kind of came to Duolingo a little while ago, and by way of introduction, I'd like to say a few words about Duolingo. And then we'll talk about why we reached out to Clayton and Charlotta to create this Navajo Na-diné course on Duolingo. And then Charlotta will talk a little bit about the challenges and the kind of unique approach that we took, the growth and the progress. And Clayton will close up with a few remarks about opportunities and where we see this going. And then we'd actually like to spend some time in conversation with you guys. And so we've kind of allotted a good portion of time to questions, and hopefully we'll have kind of a nice discussion, because I want to know what you guys want to know from us and what everyone else is working on. So let's go to the next slide there. So worldwide, over 1 billion people are learning another language in the world. Slide. And Duolingo is kind of based on the belief that everyone should have access to education of the highest quality for free. So that's kind of what we started on. That's still where our heart is. And the idea of what that means and how that looks has kind of evolved over the past couple of years. So you can go to the next slide. I think an important thing to know about Duolingo is that it's very scrappy. It's a very tiny team. We try to offer these learning tools for free for everyone in the world and make it accessible to anyone who wants to improve themselves through education. And so we're trying to do big things, but we're a small team. We're about 150 people now, based in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So a mix of computer software engineers and designers, community managers like myself, marketers, and kind of our CEO and very inspiring founder, Luis Bonan, who is from Guatemala and has kind of personal experience with the inequality that's created when there's vastly different access to quality education. And the irony in his childhood was that everyone could buy themselves a better education to further improve their kind of financial situation. And so he created Duolingo with the really strong foundational belief that everybody has the right to learn. And the beginning is language, but we'd love to also talk about future endeavors in just democratizing education. So we can go to the next slide. That's just to give you an idea of our scrappy little team. So what we're able to do with these people, though, and these people devoted to this mission, is offer over 100 language courses for free. And we do that through a combination of our staff and volunteers who also believe in this mission. And we use that kind of incredible outpouring of support for this mission and passion for people sharing their expertise and wanting to be a part of this project. We leverage that through our global ambassadors. So basically, if somebody wants to teach a course for free on Duolingo, we're going to do everything that we can to make that happen. If they can come to us with a good pitch and enough people who are willing to work on this and maintain this, and it's not too difficult from a technical perspective, our goal is really to be able to teach any language in the world and make it accessible to anyone in the world anywhere. Let's go to the next slide. And let's take this with a grain of salt. there are kind of some studies underway about efficacy and time spent on Duolingo, and in one recently published study, a kind of college semester was equal to 34 hours spent on Duolingo in terms of fluency level gained in these kind of before and after tests. So that's not really what I want you to take away from this. We actually think Duolingo is really powerful in combination with tutors and real world practice. But the nice thing about Duolingo is that it's also accessible and beneficial to people who don't have access to native speakers when they're learning a language. Slide. So part of making it accessible is providing free apps and a web version. You can visit us at Duolingo.com. You can create an account for free. All you need is an email address. And then you have access to all the courses. So we'll go to the next slide, and I think we'll try to give you a demo of what the Navajo course looks like, and I'll talk a little bit about how that was made. So this is what it looks like. If you haven't experienced Duolingo on your phone or on the web, it's kind of a very intuitive, game-like experience. We want people to have fun while they're learning, because if they're not going to have fun, they're not going to stick around, they're ultimately not going to learn. So that's kind of the underlying theme here, is we want to teach intuitively, maybe the way children learn languages, kind of take the pressure and the anxiety out of it, the way some people experience learning language in the classroom. And the next slide, I think, is just the same thing on the web. You can go ahead. Yeah, so we have these little modular units, these kind of topical skills that you progress through. You unlock what we call your tree or your skill course. And then there are little things that kind of keep you motivated, so you can set yourself a daily goals. As you go through these lessons, the system is learning from your input, so we really try to constantly improve and tailor every lesson to the learner's individual strengths and weaknesses. And we can go on to the next one. This, I think, may or may not work. Give it a try.
Okay, I'm gonna play it now.
Okay. So that's kind of the experience, and I recommend, you guys play around with it on your own device, and it will feel a little more natural. But it's just pretty cool to see that in such a short amount of time, this team, Clayton and Charlotta and their students, were able to, go from ideation to full-blown app and website and interactive learning system that really gives you immediate feedback. You get the kind of native speaker audio experience, and you get graded on your input, whether or not it was correct, and these kind of instant feedback messages. So we were able to leverage what Duolingo does for a lot of our other language courses, our larger languages, and make that available for the team then to ultimately decide themselves what they wanted to teach. So you may have noticed Shiprock there. We have some kind of local geographical kind of vocabulary that's being integrated, and that's really kind of this collaboration. So this happened within the last year. We were able to launch this on Indigenous Peoples Day last year, and it was kind of a natural partnership. I reached out to Clayton Long because I was looking at who was teaching to people to students especially, where they already are, which is online. And Clayton was kind of the most prominent person teaching Navajo on YouTube. And so I thought, well, this is actually really interesting. We could try using this tool Duolingo has created, which originally was meant to teach languages through courses, but has turned out to actually be really powerful for documenting languages and amplifying revitalization efforts. And so we decided to just kind of try this as a test, and as tests go, there's been lots of learnings and kind of lots of ideas for what we would like to do differently in the future. But overall, it's been just a huge success. We have over 320,000 people who have used the Navajo course in the last month. That's actually more people than have used the Hungarian course on Duolingo, so that's kind of interesting. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear Charlotta kind of talk about the process and Clayton and about what we think we can do next. So we have a very basic language course on Duolingo right now, but yeah, as long as there's interest and people kind of willing to guide the project forward, there will always be room for improvement and expansion. So I think the next slide may be the next portion. Charlotta, do you mind going next? There you are. Yeah. So challenges, maybe by segue, I think the challenges on the Duolingo side were just that we were so far away. So it made it very difficult for me to come and work in person. Really the most progress you can make with a project like this is being in the same room together and being able to troubleshoot software and kind of onboard everybody at the same rates and hash out things like translation conventions in person. So it was really great. I came to Landing to work with Charlotta's high school students and their families. So we had some grandparents and parents in the classroom who kind of gave us the content, and then the students worked on putting that into the incubator, which is Duolingo's crowdsourced platform for course design. And that was really the most progress. We can crank everything out in a week, and that was great. Now working remotely has presented some unique challenges, but we have some ideas for that. So Charlotte, I'd love to kind of pass the mic to you and have you talk about your experience on the course creation side.
Thank you, Myra. Do I have a microphone or can I drive to speak? I'll see if I can speak loud enough. Okay, so I am Charlotta Lacy. Last year when we were working with Myra, I was working as a teacher at Albert R. Lyman Middle School as well as San Juan High School. So I've had the opportunity to work with students from grades 6 through 12 and teaching the Navajo language, the culture, traditions, as well as Native American Studies class, and also the Navajo government course is what I taught students. So it's really a great opportunity to be able to share languages, coming here and seeing all the different positions available for people to interpret or to translate. I find that very impressive. The fact that we're preserving language, it's a wonderful thing that we get to do. It's a privilege, and so it's nice to see that it's just not, one person or two people, but it's everyone throughout the state of Utah, probably throughout the world. So it's really wonderful to be part of something huge. When Myra came to us, actually Clayton, she had approached Clayton because he, like she said, he has YouTube classes online, and she reached out to him. And then Clayton came to me and said, what do you think about, getting the students involved? And at first I'm thinking, I'm a teacher, I'm too busy for this. I don't think that I have time to incorporate this into my class because I'm feeling very very thinned out as it is. So initially my thoughts were, probably not, because I'm just surviving as a teacher day in, day out, so no thanks, you know. But then the more I thought about it, the more I thought, you know, this is actually a great opportunity for my students to learn, to take what they've learned and to be able to put it into Duolingo. This is a great opportunity for them. So with that in mind, I agreed to work with Clayton and Myra, and I'm very thankful that I did. But we were also asked to talk about the challenges, and so I'm going to go ahead and talk about the challenges, and then I will talk about how we were also successful. So one challenge that we found is our students they were very interested in helping with Duolingo because they also have passion for preserving language. And that was really, that was actually very surprising to me, because I think oftentimes we think that our students, you know, they may or may not be learning, but then you realize that you realize that they truly have an interest and they want to be part of some, you know, part of preserving language. And I think I underestimated my students because I thought, oh, they're here to learn, but I didn't realize that they also want to take it a step further by sharing it with the world, really, with Duolingo. So, but one challenge that my students had is majority of them live on the Navajo reservation. How many of you guys have been on the reservation before? Multiple people in here. And how many of you guys have had great success having access to Wi-Fi or even being able to use your phone on the reservation? That's one challenge that we have, is that, like, I have Verizon, and when I go onto the reservation, I find that my service is very limited. And so, like, I may be lucky if I get a bar, like, on the reservation, and that's with Verizon, one of the big carriers of our phone. So anyway, so that's one challenge that we found, is most of my students would go home, and some of them are going back to, like, if they live with their grandparents, they're in a traditional hogan, and grandma and grandpa don't really have a need for technology, you know, or they may not afford technology. So oftentimes I found that my students, something that I think we all take for granted, right? For those of us that live in a city and we have access to the internet, we can, you know, own a laptop or a phone. You know, those are some basic necessities that we take advantage, or that we have daily, but it's really something that's very sparse on the reservation. So that was one of the first challenges we had, is just the lack of technology, the availability of it. And so the next challenge that and so oftentimes what would happen is the students would have to find time to stay after school, which was also a challenge, and I'll go into that. Okay, so time. We all know that time is something that's very valuable to each of us, and it's something that really can be it's hard for us to incorporate everything that we want to do with our time, and that's what my students came to find out as well. Because they lived on the reservation, they were bused in every day, and they still are. They get up at 5 in the morning. Some of them get on the bus at 5:30 in the morning, and then they're on the bus for 2 hours before they get to school. And then once they get to school, they're in classes all day long. And when they finally get out of school, then, you know, if it's during the winter months, the sun is going down and they need to get home. So we found that it was hard to try and to continue Duolingo after school, because my students had to get home. They had to get back on the after-school bus. Even if they stayed after school, they only had 2 hours at the most that I could work with them, and they had to get home, and, you know, grandma or grandpa or their parents would not be able to come retrieve them at the school, so they had to get back on the bus and go home. And so, so traveling, that was a huge part as well. And then chores. Because some of my students are coming from traditional backgrounds, they have chores to do at home. They have livestock. They have animals like horses, sheep, goats, you know, that they have to get back and feed. And so it was not just schoolwork that they were super busy with. It was actually the chores that, you know, they have to do every day. And so oftentimes I would have my students come up to me and say, I wish I could stay, but I've got to get home, I've got to help my grandma, I've got to help my grandpa with the livestock, so I can't stay, but I really want to participate, it's just not possible. And so that was another factor, was time. Let's see, so another challenge we also came across was the support, the language support at home. So if they lived in a traditional background, the parents or the grandparents may have learned, they would know how to speak Navajo, they have a command of the language, but they would not be able to read or write Navajo. So let's say they had access to technology at home and they're able to do it, we would come across limitations with reading and writing Navajo and putting it into the incubator and the dual language courses. And also I have a picture of a family tree up here. I know that when I was growing up, my grandmother raised me part of my life, and then I had my parents also raised me part of my life, and I've had my aunts and other people that have helped raise me as I grew older. And one thing that I've noticed is my grandparents, they have a solid, they have the Navajo language, and my parents do as well. But it's with my generation where I found that a lot of my peers were beginning to no longer speak the Navajo language. And so you find that in our day and time in 2019, that there's hardly any fluent speakers. So what the students that come into my classroom, they are coming from homes where the parents do not know Navajo. So then it becomes, but the students, you see the desire that they have to learn the language. And so their desire is strong, and they want to grasp the Navajo language, and they love their culture, they love the language, and they want to learn. And so I found that even if for those that, let's say, that my students that lived in town, they had access to computer, but then the parents didn't have a command of the Navajo language, they didn't speak, read, or write. So that was the second challenge, is really having that language support at home. They did not have that. It had to be in the schools. And so, let's see, the next challenge was, okay, I had a student at the end of the school year call me like a week after school got out and said, Mrs. Lacy, I'm here at the high school, and I wanted to know if I could work on Duolingo, but can I get paid for it? And I thought, oh, I wish we had the funding. I wish we had the funding to be able to pay our students to devote some time to Duolingo. Here's this young man who has a desire and really wants to contribute, and we don't have funding to support that. And so it was really heartbreaking to tell him, you know, I'm so glad that you have a desire and you really want to help with this, but I don't have the funds to pay you. And I think he had hoped that Myra had actually applied for a grant so that we could have students work on this through the summer. They could earn a little bit of money so that they can use it for school supplies when schools started back up. But it just didn't work out, so we felt really bad about that. So, and I think that that's true with any organization, is that there's always a lack of funding, and you have to find ways to fund important projects. And so that was another challenge that we dealt with. And then as a teacher, I'm going to go ahead and jump to what some of the challenges that I came across were as a teacher. Being that I was between two schools, I was at one school for a good, half of the day, and then at the other school for the other part of the day. Well, when you teach at the high school level, this is one thing I didn't factor in, is then you have clubs that you work with. So we have our Blue Mountain Unity Club, and at the middle school we have our ARL for Albert R. Lyman Yajay Unity Club. And so I found that my time was very sparse. Like, it was really hard to find the time to stay after school and work with my students. And then during the class hours, obviously we have lessons to teach. And so I found it very difficult to try and keep it going, and to, as much as I tried to work it into my lesson plan, it was really hard to try and continually work with my students, because I had a full class and I couldn't just dedicate time to 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 people. I still have my whole class that I have to give attention to. And so I found that very challenging. And so, and also, like, when we started Duolingo, it was in the month of October. And winter months, of course, comes upon us. And the month of November, at our school, we have Native American Heritage Month. And so all through the month, we're planning activities with Native American activities. And so we're focused on that. And then come January, we start getting busy with school competitions. We travel on the reservation and we compete against other schools, singing in Navajo, dancing, and doing all these, like, spelling or all these things. So we found that time was really, it really was hard to make that time. And but we definitely had some successes with Duolingo, as Myra mentioned. Myra came down for a week in the month of October last year, and you can see that some of the students are having fun putting the Duolingo mini lessons into the incubator. And we had a huge team, and all the students were super excited. And so we were very successful as we came together as a team. I think we find this in most organizations. When we have a team and everyone is focused and everyone is on board, then we can make progress, and usually it's good progress. And so that is what we found. So what you see in the incubator is what we did within a week's time. And that was really amazing. And of course, with the amount of students that were in my class, what could take just one person multiple hours, we could do in a couple hours. So I found that to be very amazing. So that's some of the growth and progress that we had with Duolingo. And obviously we had some great production because it is out there on Duolingo now. And so I will now turn the time over to Clayton and have him say a few words. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Also, Shay Lukat and Enshtan O Ashin Vashin, the Sun Shay, up on another. That's my greeting mixed with who I am. My mother's side, the Reed people. My father's side, the Salt people. And you go back to your mother, her parents, grandparents, they're mini goats. And then on my father's side are the Kapaha, which is edge of the water people. So in a way, there's a lot of things that have flown from the years and years to make up who I am. So I'm grateful to those folks. And even though some of them are gone, I preserve some of their ideas, and it's kind of like a little foundation that says this makes Clayton strong in life itself. So anyway, I wanted to keep the kids' pictures up here because I believe in them. I always think in terms of, let's not feel sorry for the kids. Let's just believe in them, okay? So that's kind of the way I want to share things with teachers, with parents, with anybody that works with our children. And you just need to believe in them. And the more you get down to their level, and the more they begin to see that they can believe in something, okay? We already knew that they love technology. That's their culture, all right? The only answer that we had was, how is it that we can go up to where they are, all right? And so that's the job of a teacher, administrator, and that's the reason why I was intrigued by a Duolingo. In the past, I was able to help with another project, which is Rosetta Stone. So we created the Navajo Rosetta Stone. That's good. You can still use that today. We use it in the classroom in our school district. But what happens there is you learn, but that's it. How do you continue? All right. So Duolingo brings that to us. Duolingo is like a tree. It's like a little plant. And you add, and you add, and you add. And so you're creating a big tree. And it never ends, because these kids have certain ideas that they would like to test out. It doesn't really matter if it's part of the tradition or it's part of just something that they like to create and give. And so in a way, in my mind, I see the whole cycle in them already. Idea, planning, implementing, and finding the results. We're all embedded in them. And so if there's a program that does that, I am so grateful. So with that base, I just wanted to continue to promote Duolingo. Duolingo is a fantastic way of preserving and living. And that's the part I like. I think one thing I would like to say is I teach online every Monday, Tuesday. Right now my kids are listening to me on YouTube. But what I'm trying to do is meet them halfway. If I can learn something about technology, they come down and learn a little bit about who I am and what they can do with what I have. So I believe, and one thing I do is, if you take my class one time, that's Navajo 1. If you take it twice, it's called Navajo 2. And Navajo 1, if you're a senior, you can get a scholarship with it. So there's a little incentive there. Number 2, if you take Navajo 2 with me, then you can earn credits while you're in high school that can apply to some university where you can get 8 more credits out of the way, foreign language experience. And so that would be a wonderful thing to add to the Duolingo idea, that when you work on it, like Myra said, 34 hours or so, you can earn college credit. Why not? If somebody wants to do that, they can do that. So that's just an idea. Number 2, I think that young man that wanted to create mini lesson, I believe he had a dream. And I don't want to squelch that dream. I'd like him to be the leader of the Duolingo projects throughout wherever on the reservation. He would be the main leader because he knew the ins and outs. And then number 3, I was thinking about projects. If you can do this project, then you can be introduced to other projects that deal with what you're doing here. Everywhere there's projects with languages. And so if you could take Navajo, you can do a project. Right now we're doing a big project. We are doing scripture translation with the Navajo language. And I say my boss is higher than any other boss. And I love it. This is something I prepared for many, many years. It's not just something that started just a while ago. And so the projects could be part of, Navajo Nation is always asking us, can you come and do this project? Because they know that we're interested in language preservation, language teaching, language curriculum, language this and that. So we would like to open that up to the young people, because they could have great success. You can do video clips like I do, and you'll see some of them online right now. Some young people are actually doing video clips. Yeah, so Duolingo could support all that, all those ideas. And I think our dream was these kids will do it maybe for a summer, and these kids can actually go out to another community that some community is saying, can you come and share with us what you're doing, just like I'm doing right now? These kids could go over there and do the training. It used to be that the teachers would go out there to do the training. Well, if you believe in the young people, it's way exciting to see somebody that's young present to those, their own peers. And that would be something really wonderful and beautiful. Because that's how you grow. This is progress, this is growth. So anyway, I wanted to stop there. I wanted you to ask us questions. Myra, I think you're still on board. And
Yeah, okay.
let's have you ask some questions.
I really like the work you guys have done. I think it's amazing, and definitely, beyond the preservation of the language, I think the preservation of the culture is also important. And so I was just interested to know if you guys have involved any cultural aspects into the Duolingo course or the other courses that you do, and how, if you have plans in the future, of kind of incorporating more cultural aspects in addition to language with what you guys are working on.
Okay, so I think that we have, unfortunately, because I'm no longer with the school district and this Duolingo project was started with the students at the school, it kind of stays there with the students. And since I'm not teaching currently my students, I think Myra is in the process of connecting with the teacher that is now currently teaching at San Juan High School so that she can collaborate with her and continue the Duolingo project. But I know that the students have a lot of plans for it. When we first started doing Duolingo, the students actually, I turned to my students and I said, we talked about what Duolingo is, what it is and what it does, and they were so excited. And I said, what are some topics that you would be interested in learning about? Just pretend like this is a different language besides Navajo. What, if you're really interested in another language, what are some topics that you would want to learn? So based on their ideas, that is how we decided to approach Duolingo, was really tapping into our resources, which is our students. And they said, oh, I would want to learn how to say food, and I want to learn how to introduce myself in Navajo. And, just like how Clayton introduced himself in Navajo, you say, these are my 4 clans, and this is what makes me a man or a woman. Like, they were really curious, well, not curious, but they were really proactive in creating these many lessons that you see on Duolingo right now. And so it was really their idea. So I think the more we ask or tap into our students as well as adults helping be their mentors and their guides, I feel like the possibilities are endless with Duolingo.
I don't know if I should stand, but my question is regarding the challenges of teaching the actual reading. I know that Navajo orthography, the character set is sort of an academically created thing. And how does that play in? And also, does it have application for perhaps the older generation, helping them learn the language they already know, but in terms of reading and so forth?
Yeah, years ago when I started teaching the language, all the kids knew how to speak the language. They had no problem. So as far as this talking, we would just converse and converse and converse. That was a good class. But my job as a teacher is how to teach reading and writing. Okay. Luckily, we had some material that you could read and write that was written down by other folks. And so what we did was we just took story after story after story, and you would just sit with another person and you would work it so that you cannot be presenter up here. And so that was the reading part. Now the writing part was, now get together and see what you want to write. And you can start off in English, write a story in English. But from there, since you already know how to speak it, all you're going to do is I'm going to be your resource, and I will teach you how how to write, okay? And along the way, I just let them know that if you want to say, and make it really simple, you know, if you want to say the A sound, you say ah as in father, ah. But you know, you can treat this ah, and that way you can treat it like ah or You know, you can say it through the nose, or you can make a tonal rise, or you can do both. You know, so high and low kind of type sound with that. Or you can, what I call stretch it, or you can go up and say or you, with a nasal sound, or just come back down. These are two A's together. So it's like the symbols are like pictures, okay? And we just treat these pictures in different ways, and how we can say that sounds this way. And that's how I teach it anyway. So
Is the Duolingo helpful in that regard?
Duolingo is helpful from the students that are creating. I'm thinking that they're the ones that are learning, because they're the ones that are asking the resource, the teachers, how do you type, how do you spell this? And they're actually practicing putting in the high tones and the nasal, and that's how they're learning along the way.
Is that true?
And something,
We worked as a group, so we had, like Myra said, we have our grandmas that came, and, you know, like, so we really worked as a team, and, go ahead, Myra.
oh, sorry. Something I was just going to add from the technical side for these unique challenges is that Duolingo is kind of being challenged by some of these kind of unique linguistic features, and so we actually created a new challenge type. Challenges are, you know, what you're prompted to do, whether it's translate or listen and write, or read a paragraph and answer a comprehension question. So in the process of kind of creating Navajo, and then Hawaiian was another course that we brought to Duolingo, we were able to kind of take some new challenge types that we had developed for Asian languages and character-based languages, and build those out. So if you go to the Hawaiian course and the Japanese course, you'll see a new type of challenge. And that's something we're really excited to be able to bring to this course as well, where the focus will actually be more on the syllabic level, and I think that might get at some of the, maybe not the teaching, the writing, which is, you know, it's nice for us that it's in a Latin script, but it's kind of not as important as the audio component. And so we're really trying hard to make more kind of challenges to support that kind of content. That's all I was going to say about that.
What do you guys hope to inspire your Navajo learners to do with their language acquisition? Let's say they go through the whole Navajo tree and they learn and they're very passionate about Navajo. What do you hope they will do with their language expertise?
Always in my mind is, how do you apply this to real life? You can apply it to learning something for the teacher, get an A, whatever. But how do you use this? It's ongoing. And that's where I believe there's projects you can begin. I would like teachers to start little projects with the kids. It doesn't really matter. You can take the singing and the dancing, and you can script the whole thing if you want to, and you can become a comedian. And in Navajo, when you have a script, all those things. So I like the kids themselves to mold themselves into, this is what I want to be. Always I'm saying, let's not always have somebody else outside the culture or language do something with the language. The whole answer of preserving, of using, is right here. It doesn't exist anywhere else. It's just right here. So it starts with you. And so I never think of myself as above a teacher above a student. I come down and I say, we, how do we want to do something? And I think that's part of the answer is we create, and just about.
I would also like to respond to that. One thing that I would do with my students is because I knew I had some students that were interested in medical, and so they wanted to go into like the nursing program or go into radiology or some medical field. And so I would do a unit on like body parts. Obviously that's kind of a given, but then really asking the questions like, how are you feeling? Where are you aching? Where does it hurt? You know, so practical lessons that they could actually use, because in Blandy, just recently, we have the Blue Mountain Hospital now, but we also have another organization, it's the Utah Navajo Health Systems, and they have like dental, they have radiology, they have vision and everything there, and you have a lot of the older generation coming from off the reservation to Blandy to get these medical services. And even my daughter, who's really interested in radiology, works at the hospital, and she's even come to me and said, Mom, okay, how do I say this? Am I pronouncing this correctly? So you see that they're actually applying what they've learned in real life scenarios. And so I think that there's already some desire there in our students. Oftentimes when students came to my classroom, it's not because they were forced to be there, right? Maybe one student, their parents, of course, but for a majority of them, they were there because they wanted to learn the Navajo language. They would say, my parents don't know how to speak Navajo and I want to learn to speak Navajo. So they really come with the intentions to pick up the language and to really use it every day. And so, great question, thank you.
We have time for one more question.
Thank you, this is fascinating. My question for you is, how widespread or popular is the use of Duolingo with these students? You've shown us pictures of students, you have students that are working on it. Is this something that is catching on with students that are not even working on the project initially, or is it becoming more popular among all of the students at your schools?
I believe so. So when we launched Duolingo, I had a lot of other teachers that reached out to me from different school districts. And they said, how can we have our two schools join together? How can we join forces and make this, great, And so, of course, then we get so busy and everything. But I'm hoping that our school district continues this Duolingo course and that like the current teacher there can collaborate with other teachers. I didn't have the opportunity to collaborate with them just because it was so new and just trying to work it into my classroom schedule but there is an interest, and it's huge, from other school districts that want to be involved. And even just, Myra can probably tell you, just even online, when people go on, they're really, what's the word, like they're really saying, oh, I'm Navajo, I live in New York, but I understand the Navajo language and how can I be a contributor? And I think we see a lot of that. Is that correct, Myra?
Yes, absolutely. I get a lot of applications for people who want to participate in the next version of the course. People who are saying, I know exactly what I want to add, and I can help intermittently when I'm in the city, but then, I'm going to go back onto the reservation and I won't have internet access for a while. So the same kind of challenges is kind of interesting for the smaller and shrinking pool of native speakers who really have the expertise to contribute to a project like this. A lot of them also kind of have limited internet access or available technology. So that's why this kind of partnership with students in a high school was just so perfect, because it really brings the community together and allows them to leverage the tools that are there for communal use. And I do have a lot of faith that, even if it'll take a long time, I think a lot of people are kind of feeling the call here, and a lot of people are recognizing the urgency of the moment. So that's really our hope, is just enough people like Charlotta and Clayton who are just, out of the kindness of their hearts, able to kind of galvanize their communities to to do this. Yeah, it's just been really an incredible kind of pleasure and honor to be a part of that.
Okay, thank you very much for all your questions. We still have the room for another little bit, so if some of you have questions that you didn't get a chance to ask, our presenters are still here. You have a chance to go and talk with them personally. Let's wrap up by giving a big round of applause.